what I've found over the years is that everybody learns differently. And being a mentor allows you to really pull that out of people and to allow them to explore their vulnerabilities as well, to share with you maybe some of the challenges that they're having, and then to really help them learn along the way, to step outside of their comfort zone, and then to grow within the program. And that's what I think that's allowed me to do within the club. And as much as I've given back, I think I take way more learning, if you will, for myself. I learn just in teaching or in guiding others. It's a really rewarding thing to do.
Francine, please.
Okay, I truly enjoyed what Rebecca shared, because my journey has been kind of similar. And what I enjoy most about mentoring is that it really is that one-to-one relationship, and the sharing, as she said, knowledge, because I am a teacher at heart, and I have always believed that knowledge should be shared. And the goal as the mentor is to make sure that whomever you are imparting experience and knowledge to is to accommodate who they are, what are their objectives, what do they wish to accomplish. And it's not, well, this is what you should do to that. It's truly a symbiotic relationship where both of us grow at the same time. Having been a pathway guide as well, it enabled me to do multiple one-on-one trainings in my own club. And then once everybody had the basics, then I would do another PowerPoint presentation on, we'll say, level 1. Then we went to level 2 and then level 3, so that everybody, it kind of demystified what they thought was so complicated about pathways. But I ended up showing that there's quite a few similarities with the legacy. Legacy is still the building blocks, the foundation, and pathways just adds that little extra. And of course, has different objectives for whatever you're desiring to develop because of the number of paths that do exist. And then I incorporated that we have a very strong mentoring going on, mentorship in our club. So now the task was to get all the mentors and train them. So now they are training their mentees, therefore alleviating, freeing me to do other things and to see how better to incorporate nuances that they still haven't yet understood. But it's a win-win for everyone. And the tagline I always use for mentoring and when I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation is mentor, question mark, mentee, question mark, and I finish it with mental. So we become all three. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you, Francine. Scott, why mentor?
Well, you know, to be honest with you, for years, we didn't run any mentorship program at all. And even in the clubs that I coached, there really wasn't much about mentoring. It just seemed like it was too much, you know, to add into the mix. And over the years of coaching clubs, I started to realize, you know, what created the greatest positive difference to whether a club would go from the doldrums to back to successful, or, you know, we started to look closely at what ails clubs and why they fall apart type things. And it was only then that I think we realized how important the mentoring piece was. Because you could sit in club meetings, struggling club meetings, and they would be talking about trying to build membership and trying to get more money in the bank account. And, you know, they wanted to do an open house and have people in, and they were trying to figure out all of these things to somehow generate membership rather. And the reality is they could have taken half that time and focused on a mentorship program and had a far greater outcome, and they just didn't realize it. And when we did the mentorship workshop a couple of weeks ago, the number one comment was, well, we just don't want to add in one more thing to all the other things that we have to do. So the alchemy of coaching is that It's to define the few things that you do have to do to create the greatest possible outcome and not burn yourself out in the process. And I've come to totally believe that running a great mentorship program needn't be complicated, and the outcome can be absolutely incredible for the richness of the club and the motivation of the membership and all those positive things that we try to do as a club coach. So for me, mentorship is definitely one of those foundational pieces, and most clubs don't do it.
I love the word alchemy. And it gives such an image of things just falling in place, things coming together. And in light of that, I have a few questions I want to ask. I'm going to fill up and ask on some of the things that you've shared with us. Some of you in the audience may have questions or ideas or concepts that I invite you to throw them into the chat, and we'll get to them as we go through the process and try to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. One of the things that we spoke to a couple of days ago when we met and began to talk about what types of ideas do we want to share with people, one of the things that came to mind and I think bubbled up quickly was this is the perfect time to mentor with people. This is the perfect opportunity to mentor and create mentor programs. And yet a lot of clubs may not see that. Scott, maybe you could start and share with us why this is such an awesome time and what factors have come in play to make this ideal.
Oh, sure. Well, I think one example that came up in that conversation was, a few years ago, if you were mentoring someone, you would try to figure out what evening of the week you wanted to meet with them, and then what coffee shop you were going to meet in. And, there was all these complications just around the actual getting together. So nothing has been more incredible for mentorship than Zoom. You can get on a Zoom call for 5 minutes and cover something quickly. If you drove all the way to a coffee shop, that's not going to happen. There's no 5-minute meeting. You'd meet for an hour or two, and you just hope that you covered everything. But I have more mentees than ever before, and it's probably a lot more time efficient than it's ever been. And again, it can be a quick meeting, a quick 5 minutes to take them through something, a half an hour speech writing together, and the interaction to me is phenomenal. And synchronizing with Zoom has been amazing. So that'd be my number one point.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Jim. I'd echo absolutely what Scott said. Being able to connect with people over Zoom has really simplified things. I personally love the screen sharing capability as well. So not only to be able to share, pull up my screen and show what I'm seeing, but then also to have them do that and reciprocate so that then I can say, nope, point here or point there. The other thing that I like about the Zoom functionality is being able to practice. And that could be recording and then sending that over or virtually going through that. So it really has simplified and streamlined and taken away the need for travel or transportation and, worrying about, like Scott said, that connecting and trying to figure out what works, because it's really, you can do it on the fly, which has been great.
Thank you. Francine, we talked about the ability to mentor or even just coach people at an actual meeting or shortly after a meeting. Can you share some ideas and insights about that?
Well, what we normally do that we always have an after the meeting, but at the same time, we also create breakout rooms so that mentors can go in those rooms with their mentees, unless they already have another designated program that they're doing, a different time slot. Like for myself personally, I have specific days, specific times every week with each individual mentee. And we also, what we have incorporated with our account, our club account, we have put it in such a fashion that anyone has access who is a mentor. So they can set up their own meetings with their mentees. And we do as what Rebecca does, we can record. And at the same time, I always get feedback from the mentees on how they are enjoying the relationship with their mentor and vice versa, just to make sure that they're well paired.
And I think that is exactly speaking to Lynn's comment. Lynn threw a note into the chat. There are times where a member could benefit from some feedback, could benefit from some loving insight about what they may be able to improve on, and yet they tend to either refuse to meet with someone, they refuse the feedback, any number of reactions. How do we take that and address Lynn's question in particular, where someone is reluctant to be mentored? How do you engage that person, in particular now when you have so many tools available? Anybody?
I can take that one because I've had, there's a specific individual that I've mentored that has done a lot of work in the legacy program and was really reluctant to move into pathways. A lot of it had to do with technology around it and the complication in their mind of really moving on to pathways and understanding what the program would be and what speeches they'd have to do or projects. And really where we started was baby steps. So we took it to just logging in, and let's just log in and let's see if we can do that. And then let's take it one step further and say, where are we at within the program? We talked about what their goals were and what they were hoping to accomplish. And our conversation first was really just about what was holding them back and what it would take to make them comfortable. And then from there, it was baby steps, a half an hour a week for about a month, so that they got more comfortable with just logging in. And then they moved to, okay, well, can you show me? I've got a bunch of paper from the old program, and I'd really like to be able to put that into here. Is that something that's possible? And just, they started to get curious about it. And I didn't push, because my goal wasn't to move them over to pathways and to, let's move to, path 1, path 2. It wasn't about that. It was really more about finding out what was holding them back. And as they got curious, they started to get more and more confident throughout, and then started to seek out those questions and that desire to talk about it. So that I found helpful. So for Lynn, I would say if there's someone that's hesitant, see if you're doing kind of a post toasties, or for us, we also have a break in the middle where we'll chat, and then we'll take some of our mentors and really prompt them to engage in dialogue with that individual, just as a general. And then I found they tend to start to come out, because you don't make it so much about the process, you make it about the conversation.
Awesome.
If I
Go
could
ahead,
just
Lynn.
comment, in the club that I'm referring to, I'm in many different clubs. There's one member who just joined from Rotary and constantly contacts me. So even though this person doesn't have me officially as a mentor, I'm mentoring them all the time, answering their questions, sending them papers, giving them information, and they're very curious and have a lot of initiative. The member that I'm speaking about is someone who suffers from extreme anxiety, and sometimes partway through the meeting just apologizes and says they have to leave. They said that they preferred to be in contact through emails. If you send emails, this person doesn't answer anybody in the club who sends emails. I phoned a few times and he never answers the phone. It's always his father answers the phone. And then he is coming along kind of okay, and he does do projects, but he just doesn't want any mentoring. But I like the idea, Rebecca, when you said what's holding them back and what would make them comfortable. This person's much more tech savvy than I am, I say, with Zoom and everything else. And if I could maybe go with him through that and ask him for help for myself, and say that I struggle a little bit with Zoom and these aspects. Do you think you could help me? Maybe I could set up a meeting and engage him that way. So thank you for mentioning that. That's maybe something that I could do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lynn,
I
there's
throw
two
in my
other
2 cents
things.
as well?
You touched on it, and I want to get Scott's feedback on this. You talked about they're coming along in small steps. And I think those are key when you're talking about anxiety, you're talking about bringing
Oh, yeah.
someone in. Scott, what do you think?
Well, just the point I was going to add was that you have short-term strategies and long-term strategies. And the long-term strategy, not just for the individual, is to create a culture of mentorship within the club so that when people come in, that's what they see right from the get-go. And the mention that a mentor is available if you'd like. Usually most people will come around, and there's always an outlier that maybe will or maybe won't.
Yeah.
But in the culture of mentoring and educating in the club, you can go, you know what, we should be doing an educational speech on speaking anxiety. We should be doing an educational speech on getting over nerves. And then the club is supporting that need as well. And as Rebecca says, you'll slowly get them to come around and become curious. You'll start to see what they have to offer too, like you said, Lynn, and then they become part of the contribution to the club. And then you slowly build that momentum for that individual. But creating the culture for the whole club, that's the win. And most people will gravitate towards it.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because this club in particular had an excellent mentoring program, but so many members left over the last few years, and there are very few experienced members in the club. And I did mention mentoring to this individual several times, even when we were meeting in person. And he seemed more comfortable when he was in the room with people. But I always said he could pick anybody he wanted, anybody that he could get along with or whatever. And then when I'd ask him if he decided, well, he maybe, and I'm not pushing him right now. I just always leave it open that people are available to help him if he wishes. So thank you all for your ideas.
Well, the other thing I would like to add is that we had someone in our club, autistic and high anxiety. And at the minute he would start to feel very nervous, and he would start to talk really loud, make a lot of noise. And I ended up being the one that he gravitated to. So I would take him aside, and, I became like his mother. And what I ended up doing is like always, calming him down. When he had to leave the room because he was too noisy, I would go with him, let him talk about anything. And then what I would occasionally do is that I would have people give their testimonies who had either a speech impediment or just struggled with a lot of anxiety and fear. And we had one member that he came to visit our club for maybe 6 months, didn't say a word. He was a guest all the time, and he had a fear. So when he decided to join, because he wanted to give a toast at his daughter's wedding. So I said to him, all you need to do, you can go up front if you want. If you're too afraid to face your audience, sit in a chair and look the other way. It's at your pace, and do what makes you comfortable. And today he's one of our best speakers.
That's nice to know.
Yeah. So there's always hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with this guy, just for the last comment, is that I think he's nervous because he was raised in the military and lived all over the world, not just in Canada, but all over the world. So he's one of these kind of tumbleweed kids, as my nephew used to say. You're bounced around so much from place to place and school to school. You never really make any friends, and you don't have any connections with people your own age, really, because you get yanked away, and you're kind of afraid to make friends because they vanish so fast. But when he first joined, he talks so fast in his speeches like this. We'd have to say you're any great content, but you just have to slow down. So at least he's learning to do that, and that's encouraging.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks for all your
That's great.
suggestions.
Thank you very much. Scott, we talked previously about the value of a mentor program and the value of a structure within a mentor program that could be applied in many different environments. Could you share with us the experience that you had at the workplace, and additionally, what you think was about the program itself that made it so appealing for you to turn around and all of a sudden use it at work?
Oh, yeah. That's a great story. I mean, they were trying to redo the mentorship program where I work, and they didn't actually know, which direction to turn in. And so the person who runs the program I brought into Creativity Plus Toastmasters just so she could see the ropes. And then after 6 months, we went back and we created that program for work. And the structure is very much the same. The goals are very much the same. You're trying to build this depth of knowledge with basically new members or new people to the company, or people who are experienced, but they really need to know some other aspect of the job. And it worked out incredibly well. Experienced people in the workplace, we lined up as many as we could to be mentors. And it's such a, it's helped people to adapt to the workplace and to get their questions answered without feeling, like they're kind of under the gun, or maybe they don't want to talk to their direct superior about it or whatever. And the other thing that happened in the workplace is that people from one end of the company would be mentored by someone at the other end of the company. And so there was all this cross-pollination of ideas and everything, which was brilliant. And like in the Toastmasters Club, there's a mentor coordinator, and that's the essential piece to the whole thing. So when Lynn was talking about the continuity from year to year and it not working one year, but it worked so well in the past, it's that mentor coordinator piece that's the essential aspect for that continued continuity and supporting the program. So, that's
awesome.
my quick.
Thank you. Scott, you touched on something that, Rebecca, I'd like you to think about and ask. The depth of knowledge, creating a depth of knowledge that other people can leverage, other people can use. So part of the invite for this program was the 10-minute video. And during our presentation, or during our discussion previous to this, we all waxed eloquent about how awesome it was. Rebecca, share something about that video, or the value of a video like that, those types of tools. And then I want to ask the people here if they saw it and what they thought of it. Rebecca?
I think those videos like that, I think, are fantastic because they're almost like the TED Talk of the program. And something that's held me back at times, and I feel we've gotten this feedback from our club sometimes too, is I don't have X amount of time to invest in the whole the whole gamut. And the great thing about that video is it does give you the Coles notes. Let's start here, let's get comfortable here, and let's move forward. Again, when we talk about the visual, I personally am a very visual person. So I enjoy being able not just to see someone speak, but then also to show me on the screen what I can see and what I'm looking for. So that's helpful. And I think it's perfect for all ranges of experience because you don't have to invest a lot of time, and you really can just digest that small piece, and then you can go back to it and attend something like this where you're going to get a longer discussion about mentorship.
Awesome. Thank you. Adriana, Donna, I'm about to put you on the spot. Table topics time. So the two of you had mentioned that you are not yet mentors in your clubs, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you have an opportunity to watch the video that was
No,
put on
I'm
and
not
included?
familiar with. I'm not
Okay, so
familiar
you
with
missed
the
out on the
video.
video. Okay. Adriana, did you have an opportunity to see the video?
Are you talking about the one that Scott prepared?
Yeah, the 10-minute
10-minute.
mentoring.
Yes, I
Yeah.
watched it, and it was very useful for us, for a new member, that I pass it to that member, and she feels that she benefits.
So you answered my question then. My question was going to be, would something like that help you in mentoring a newer member, but you've already shared it with a newer member? So that's awesome. The tools like that, I think, are the force multiplier that so many people talk about as well. It takes what you know and it makes you more of yourself by able to share it with other people, but it also validates the information that you've been sharing with your clubs. So for those of you that have not seen that video, check it out. And I encourage you, use it when you're mentoring newer people. It is a powerful, powerful tool. Is there anybody's club today that has decided we're going to put our mentoring program on hold? We're going to wait until we're back together. We're going to, because it's really so hard to mentor now. Is there any club that's chosen not to mentor? So all of your clubs are still mentoring. Fantastic. What are some of the best things that have come out of using tools, Scott? You've talked about the tools, you've made some tools. I know that you've shared a variety in the past. What are some of the results that you've seen by leveraging tools like this?
Well, I think the real art of the thing is to take the highest priority helpful learning and focus on that and forget about the rest. Because you can burn yourself out trying to do 20 things, but if you can focus on the 3 or 4 most important things, that's the real win. So when Donna was talking about the 10-minute mentor program, what we did was we picked the 7 most important things that a new member would need to know, and we're building those 10-minute videos around those things. So we're only on like number 3. So you can watch the Pathways one. I think in a couple of weeks, the next one comes out, and that's on how to navigate the website. And the other thing that you may not realize is that the number of people, I was just looking at this report yesterday, I got Tanya to send it to me, who join and don't choose a path is insanely high. And the reason is people aren't explaining it to them, and they're, they came to, they're all nervous and they want to give speeches, and then suddenly there's this program you have to learn, and there's all these things you have to learn about the meeting, and then it becomes overwhelming. So these 10-minute segments are trying to address that. Here's how you do this thing. Here's how you do that thing. Here's how you do this. And 10 minutes isn't a big time commitment. So we figured that, new members will embrace those things. But seriously, that number is, it's like 30 to 35% of new members never pick a path. Well, that's nuts.
For those of you that have been around the legacy program, can you imagine 35% of your members, 3 out of every 10, almost 4 out of every 10, joining Toastmasters in the legacy program and not being given a competent communicator manual? It's unheard of. It just wouldn't happen. Essentially, when you become a Toastmaster, they say, here's your manual, here's how to start. Because we're here to start. We're here to start. When you mentor somebody, one of the things that we always talk about is identifying what their needs are. Francine, one of the things that you talked about was using Toastmasters at your workplace. Scott, you talked about creating a program within your workplace, but the various requirements within work of prepared speeches, of impromptu speeches, etc. Can you share a little bit more about those?
Well, we have a sheet that does tell us, according to what path you do, what you can anticipate developing skill-wise. When we have a new member, I always do the initial one-on-one and the interview with them. I have them fill out the profile and what do they do professionally? What do they want to do? Why are they joining Toastmasters in the first place? And do the skills that they want to develop coincide with their profession, or is it something else that they just want to do as, personal growth? And once we determine what it is they want, then when we go to do the assessment, we'll go through step by step and we look at all the paths. And then we narrow it down. You said 3 skills you wanted to do. Well, this path here, this path there, and that possibility. And we find out after they've done the assessment, if one of the 3 does show up. But they are always informed that they don't have to pick what's recommended, that they are to pick exactly what they want to do. And if they ask my opinion, then I often, recommend that they start with presentation mastery, just because it's one that will focus on communication, with a little bit of maybe leadership, but predominantly. And once they become comfortable, then they can go on to the other things.
Rebecca, anything to add?
I think Francine, you touched on most of it there. I agree. I typically will meet with any of our newcomers, and actually anybody that's moved over to Legacy that isn't actively involved in Pathways, to understand what their goals are. And then the other thing that I'll do is we've got a list of the paths that everybody in the program's on. So I'll also extend that to them to say, if you want to find out more, so yes, on Pathways, you can see what's coming, but if you want to talk to someone who's been moving their way through that, here's some other members that are in those paths. Because I think we hit most of them either in their first or their second path, and it gives them a good opportunity to then have that dialogue. And also from a mentorship perspective, potentially as a byproduct, choose their mentor as they're having that dialogue as well.
Scott, Rebecca spoke to mentoring some of the people that have come through the Legacy program. Commonly, when a Toastmaster has been around the Legacy program for a period of time, they've developed some certain skills and some fundamentals, yet they still can require some mentoring in some other aspects. So it might not be the same as mentoring a brand new person. Can you share some of the differences that an experienced member may require when being mentored now in Pathways?
Yeah, one thing I heard about, I've never seen it before. I heard this notion maybe a week or two ago, and that was an evaluation mentor. And for the first time, I thought, that makes total sense. You know, you have the person in the club who's pretty sharp in evaluation, and they become the evaluation mentor. And they do it in a way that maybe they'll give an educational now and then on the topic, but you know, they'll give quick advice to people, or people who are really trying to build that skill, go to that person, and they'll also create other evaluation mentors, if you want to think of it that way. Anyway, I thought that was completely ingenious. In advanced clubs, also, that's the type of mentorship you tend to get. Someone wants to be funnier, you go to the funny guy like Alberto, and you know, he'll take you through, you know, writing that comedic speech. Or you need, you know, serious presentation skills, you go to this other person, usually me, because I can be pretty serious with my presentation skills. But you know, and it's a great way to learn and grow, and you know, you kind of pick your mentor for the thing that you're really trying to learn and build. So yeah, that's another wonderful way to do it.
Can I add something, Jim?
Absolutely.
All right, what I have started in my club regarding evaluations is that majority of new members are shy about doing an evaluation. They always feel they're not up to par. So what I have done is that with their mentors, that they'll attend, everybody attends a meeting. So the mentor and mentee will do a silent evaluation of a speaker. And then when they meet up, they will compare notes, but at the same time, the mentee will listen to what the evaluator is going to say and can compare. And we do this exercise 2, 3, 4 times. And then once they feel comfortable, then they sign up as an evaluator.
Did everybody write that down? That's one of those best
That sounds
practice
like a
ideas that
really
you're stealing,
helpful program.
borrowing and sharing with your club.
Something that we did in our club, when I had someone who was really shy about evaluating, they did sign up for it, and I sat beside them and we both evaluated the speech. And then during the break, we decided who would present which part, and we went up to the podium together. And then they wanted me to start and finish. So I started and evaluated a bit. They did the section that they had picked, and then I finished off. And that gave them the confidence to not have to stand up there all by themselves and feel like a wreck. And I found that technique worked really well. So it's kind of bouncing off what Francine did.
Fantastic. Thank you. Also worthy of writing down. In particular, for our hybrid meetings, when we're getting ready to get back in person, yay, None too soon. I'm about to ask each of our panelists for the challenges that they've experienced. While I'm doing that, for any of you in the audience, think about some questions that you may have. We've got about 10 minutes left or so, and it would be interesting to hear some of the questions that you may have for our panelists. And then I'll come back with one more question for the panelists once we're all finished. So Rebecca, can you speak to some of the challenges that you've experienced? Because everybody here wants to mentor, whether we're overt or not about it. We'd like to be able to help people, but we know there's going to be challenges.
Absolutely. And I think Scott touched on it earlier when he said that he's hearing some people say, you know, we're going to do this when we come back, or sometimes it's too daunting. And one of our challenges has been a lot of our tenured members have moved on this past year, work obligations and different things, and haven't been able to be as present as they were in the past. So as a result, we have a number of new members. What we've done to help overcome that, though, is really leverage the time both before the meeting. So we have the bridge open a half an hour before. So it's a great opportunity to have dialogue. Then when we have our break, we've got that open, and we set up breakout rooms during the break and after the meeting. So we'll offer to the members if they want to meet with someone and or chat. And if they're not overtly asking for it, our VP of membership or myself as VP of education will often take them into a room just so that we can have a one-on-one dialogue to see how things are going, how they're feeling. And what we found as a result of that is our last 4 new members have all done speeches within the first or second meeting of being there, which was shocking to me. Like, jump right in, and I'm talking very powerful speeches. So it's been really, really good to see people get outside of their comfort zone right as a result of that. And we've also then found that our tenured members aren't feeling like it's so daunting, because you can really have those 10-minute mentor meetings. They don't need to be a long drawn out piece. So that's what's worked for us to overcome some of the challenges that we've faced.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. Francine?
Well, let's just say I'm in a club that's quite blessed. We don't really have challenges because we have like a family culture kind of thing, and everybody's already on board. Everyone's name is in the hat to mentor as well. But we always allow the new member 2 to 3 or even 4 meetings to see who they really jive and connect with. And then I always ask them to give me at least 2 or 3 suggestions I'll approach, and often it's the first one they want, they always get. But it's hard to say we have challenges because everyone's so involved. I don't know if it'll last forever, but for now it works.
That's great. Scott, challenges?
Well, usually the biggest challenge is the continuity from year to year and who's the mentor coordinator. But one thing that we were thinking of this past year is that the VP membership should be the mentor coordinator, because there's a lot of overlap in what the VP membership does anyway, you know, connecting the new member with the club and that kind of thing. And it's just another step to connect that new member with a mentor as well. It works out wonderfully well. That's the way I would do it. Otherwise, you're going to burn out your VP Ed if you give them that role. Also, some clubs feel a bit reluctant for someone to take on a role that they're not going to get credit for. So if you're the VP membership, you're getting credit for that role and for the mentor coordinator piece. So I think that's a great, that's a great hurdle to overcome, and it'll create that continuity from year to year. And maybe that coordinator will even stick around for a couple of years if it works out well. The one thing that's absolutely essential to the whole equation is that the mentorship program be built around getting the new member through level 1. And that's it. If they want to continue on, that's fine. But if you get all your new members through level 1, all kinds of goodness happens after that. And they'll become mentors a little further down the road as well. The biggest challenge, if you look at the data probably from your club, but definitely in the district, is that most people who join never make it through level 1, which is, again, that strangely high percentage of people who are just overwhelmed at the beginning and they just don't stick it out. So if you can get them to level 1, build your program around that, all kinds of goodness.
That's awesome. Thank you, Scott. Questions, comments? Sanjeev? I can't hear you, Sanjeev.
One of the thoughts that I've had, when a new member joins and a mentor sits down and they talk about what's the skills or what's the objectives that the new member have that they came with. But what happens is that I find many times that what that new member wants is stays with the mentor, that information. And the rest of the club members may find out over time, maybe during speeches, and may not. So my thought was that as a club, if we had a way to share that with all the members, here's a new member, this is here are the key reasons they joined our club, and here's what they're looking for, then the rest of the membership can support that mentor and the VP Education, VP membership in helping that member achieve those objectives. Because I think that information not always filtered down to all the members. So what do you think? What are your thoughts around that?
I think it's an awesome opportunity, and I think you can also leverage it. We talk about sometimes when a member brings a guest, the member introduces the guest rather than having the guest stand up and say, "I'm Jim," and then sitting down. By having the member introduce the guest, you're going to be able to pull out more information that the club would benefit from. And I think this is an opportunity for a mentor to introduce a member to the club again. I like that. Thoughts? Oh, did Scott, you had something?
Can I just throw one other thing in? So we had talked about in the workshop that we did on mentorship, there's this great form that's floating around. It's just, the new member form, they fill out, these are what I really want to do. This is what freaks me out. These are the skills I'm trying to build. And that goes to the executive of the club. And then it's given to the mentor coordinator. So already, that information is, in the realm of the executive, and, it helps them to figure out what they need to do. And then it's given, like I said, given to that mentor coordinator. So that's a great way to share the information and to get it.
That's awesome.
Can I have one more thing, Jim?
I'm sorry?
Can I add one more thing? Sanjeev, when you were talking, one thing that triggered is if that person is going to be taking on a role, no matter how small it may be, one thing, maybe an opportunity as we do the introduction, is specifically highlighting, welcome to our new member, Jim. Jim joined Toastmasters because he's looking to XYZ, so that then as a result of that, we're actually getting that out there as well and thanking them for taking on their first time role. And it's a great opportunity to build on that too.
Yep. Yeah, very good. Any other thoughts or questions before I go back to my next question? Yes, Donna, please.
Thank you. I was going to ask typically how long a mentor relationship continues, and I've just learned that it's really helpful if you get your mentee to the first pathway level. But would it be typical that your mentee, that your mentor would be with you until you complete a pathway, or is it never ending, or just let it decide however it goes on? It could be for years, it could be for 6 months. Thoughts on that?
Donna, I'm going to put Tanya on the spot because Tanya just popped in. Tanya.
Great.
Yes, I didn't hear the question though, sorry.
I'm about to ask you the question. So Tanya,
Awesome.
You've been around Toastmasters for how long?
8 years.
Tanya is currently our program quality director. Next year, Tanya will step in as our district director. Tanya, how long have you had some of your mentors, and plural mentors?
Sounds good. I tend to change my mentors up. I change my speaking mentors up every 4 to 5 months. And I usually do it around that time because that's when I'm looking to develop something new. And so right now I'm really focusing on storytelling and being able to intertwine storytelling into my presentation. So I'm working with one mentor specifically on that. But not too long ago, I was really focused on trying to slow my pace down and my vocal variety. And that was a different person that I just thought, you've got the skills I want. I'm going to get you to come help me. So I switch it around. My leadership mentors have been pretty consistent over the last 3 years. They have followed me up through the ranks, if you will. But my communication mentors, I seek what skills I'm trying to learn and I tag team with somebody.
Donna, the two things that I would like to build on what Tanya said is as a reminder, and you heard it alluded to earlier, Tanya has multiple mentors for different things that she's looking for. And she keeps her mentors around as long as she feels she needs things from them. So some of them have been around for a long time, others not quite so long. You'll notice in the Slack that the survey has just been posted. We're probably going to be kicked out of here in just a couple of moments, just because the technology does what it does. So I want to go back to our panelists for any final words, and then we'll get any last questions at the end.
Okay.
Francine?
Well, I think, if you really understand and build a relationship with the individuals, you can easily determine what they need. And because if you are experienced, you pretty much well know everyone else, your members, and it's easier then to pair them up properly and let them know as well it's not a lifelong relationship, because us normally after we've done level 1 and possibly 2, then we suggest now that you're going to level 3 where there's more projects and really on what you want to develop, then look to see who else you would like.
Yeah. Rebecca?
I'd echo that and then build to say, if you can find out what brought people into Toastmasters and what objectives they're looking to accomplish, that's a great way to tie it back into there. Everyone's come to us for a reason, and typically that's not just to sit by and listen. They're trying to accomplish something, and then if you can work through that with them, and even if it's small steps, that will be helpful as well.
Scott?
Well, one thing is I would highly recommend, if you didn't see the workshop that we gave a few weeks ago, that video is also on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and do a search for District 61 10-minute mentor, and those videos will pop up. And as we add them, that's where they'll be. The workshop was pretty good, I thought, and it covered a lot of excellent content. The speaker, he was okay, but I'm just kidding. It was me. But if you go and you look at that video and share it with anybody else in your club on the executive, and just get that dialogue going. The other thing is, if anybody ever needs help, I'm happy to be a resource for helping you get it going in your club. So please feel free to ask. I'm always there to support this important cause.
Awesome. Sanjeev, I guess you get the last word because his links are closing down in a minute.
A question about that form that Scott mentioned about the member survey.
It's the new member survey.
Yeah.
It's the new member survey. It's a PDF
it's
available on TI.
Okay. Yeah, that one. Okay.
Yep, I'll send it to you.
The mentor program is critical. It need not be formulated, created in the same manner in every club. Every club has a bit of a new culture. Every club is a little bit different. Every club needs different things. But I will say, without a shadow of a doubt, everybody that gets into Toastmasters gets in for help. They may not accept it immediately. They may not know what they need, but they get in for help. Help in communication skills, help in their leadership skills, help in overcoming their fears, their anxiety, as we heard earlier. People want stuff. That's why they're here. People go to a car lot because they want a car. Maybe not today, but that's why they're there. And so I encourage you to learn more about mentoring. Learn more about mentoring and practice it. If you mentor with the intention of, I'm just here to help and share what I know, I'm here to learn with you, I'm here to point you to the people that I know can do stuff, without a doubt, everybody will benefit from the experience. Most importantly, oddly enough, you will benefit from the experience, because we learn far, far more from teaching things than we ever do sitting in classrooms. It's astounding how it works out. But as you begin to research and teach things, you'll learn all sorts of stuff about it, and you'll be excellent. Francine, Scott, and Rebecca, thank you ever so much for all of us, for sharing of your time. We've all learned lots.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jim. You did a
Fun.
brilliant
Thank
job.
you.
Well done.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.